Welcome to Rethinking Death.life, the podcast where we flip the script on the spoiler alert. Everyone dies.
Hosted by the witty widowed death doula duo,
Kathy Dempsey
and Kim Harms.
We know our way around both life and afterlife prep. We tackle the big questions with humor and heart and a healthy dose of reality talk.
Whether you're planning your epic exit, pondering what's next, or just want to know if death really has a sense of humor, we've got you covered. Because rethinking death might just be the secret to truly living. Well, welcome to Rethinking Death.life, and it is just my complete honor to welcome today a woman that I just have such great respect for. She's been a mentor to Kathy and I, and she is a true visionary, an author, a speaker, and she is affectionately known as a doyenne of death. Welcome, Gail Rubin, to another one of our podcasts, and we're just so grateful to you for all of the information you're sharing with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kathy. Great to be with you.
Yes, Gail, we just love you sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. And what we want to talk a little bit about today is what are some of those post-death communication tips, pearls of wisdom, like what is the best way to communicate that your loved one has died?
I like to go old school and actually call people on the telephone to share the news, because that way you can do, immediate conversation with someone. You can let people know what the plans are in terms of a memorial service or a funeral. And then also, get feedback from the person you're sharing the news with, that, and they can be supportive. So calling on the phone, I think, is the best way right off the bat. Email, social media, putting something in the newspaper, in an obituary death notice, those are all ways to get the news out as well.
I know, speaking in what I've observed the last few years, even with the younger generation, they are totally comfortable with just texting that somebody's died. And I thought, I've been on the end of receiving that before, and I have some friends who received that their mother or father had died, and I just appreciate you saying, going back to the old pick up the phone or visit them. I know when my mom had sudden death, she did have cancer, but she was fine the day that she died. We had wonderful breakfast together, and I was gonna come back in about 20 minutes and play Scrabble with her, and all of a sudden, she just had a sudden death. And this was in the 35 years ago or more. And so my dad had gone shopping, and there was no cell phones, as you know, back then. So there's no way to call. And so I called the doctor. I called the funeral home. I didn't even know what funeral home, and I had her taken to a funeral home. They came and got the body. We called every mall and store and grocery store to try to find my dad and have him paged. And he came back about 2 hours later, and I'm walking out the door saying, Mom's gone. I mean, it was just, it was just very hard on him, I know, but I felt like I needed to get out of the house and meet him at the car door and tell him before he walked in that Mom died and she's actually gone to the funeral home already. I mean, who would think that would happen within 2 hours of you just having breakfast with your wife?
Wow. And, there's also that idea about getting the body out of the house, having the funeral home come and take them away. I think in this day and age, we're maybe more inclined to take some time, sit with the body, allow people to come and visit. Death is not an emergency.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I called, we had, and my brother died, then my son died. We had several deaths in one year. And then a few months later, I called my nieces in Nebraska to just say I was going to come down, I was passing through. And then I called up and I said, hello, this is your Aunt Kim. And they said, oh no. And I said, no, no, don't worry. Nobody died. Nobody died, because sometimes we only call people when someone dies. So it really does bring back the importance of keeping connected with people that are important to you. And I learned
Yeah.
that lesson on that one call.
Yeah. So Kim, about your son's death, because how did they call you or how was that
Oh
communicated?
boy. Yeah, my son, I had this beautiful, beautiful son, Eric, who was just a very talented guy. He was at Columbia University, he was a jazz pianist. He was studying engineering. Everything was going his way. He was elected to student government, made the dean's list. He had this fabulous first semester. He came home for 2 weeks, was on top of the world. And then he went back, and about 2 weeks later, his girlfriend broke up with him, which is a normal part of life, right? That happens to all of us. But he was gone in 20 minutes. That brain that was not fully functioning, and that very impulsive jazz pianist, and he was gone in 45 minutes after the breakup. And we were in shock. When something like that happens, they tried to I was in DC, I was at a meeting in Washington, DC, and we had gone out for the evening to visit old friends, my husband and I. And they called the police to come to the hotel, the Hay Adams Hotel in DC, and we weren't there. And of course, nobody knew where we were. And finally, I got a call from a local police officer in Farmington, Minnesota. One of my patients, I was a dentist, one of my patients, and he told me, and it was I'll never forget when you're told that especially a child has died a sudden death, of anyone really, particularly a child. It was just like your world had exploded, and you can't even describe it, in a million pieces over that time. But they tried to tell me in person, but they just couldn't find me, just kind of like your father. And the first thing he said when he got on the phone was, "Are you driving?" And I said no, and I wasn't driving. So, but it was just like, it's something that you're gonna. It's like a piercing shriek that I'll hear the rest of my life in my ears when you hear that news. So it's a really difficult thing to pass the news on of a unexpected death like that. And I was fortunate. I didn't really, because I couldn't call anybody. I was in such shock that I had family and friends that made the calls for us, except to just a few very close family members. But it's such a hard piece of news to hear in many cases. And I think I really like Gail's recommendation to do it, either in person or on the phone if you can, to the people that are important. But I think also nowadays we do need to use social media for all the other people out there that you don't know about. And there were thousands at his funeral. There were a lot of people that showed up in New York. They did a memorial service for him in New York at Columbia, and they even put in a memorial, a shad bush down there for him. So that communication, that's why these questions were really important to me, because that communication is so important right afterwards.
And you don't know how somebody's going to react. My background is ER trauma nurse. And so I was often the one who, with the doctor, would go into the family room and tell them that their child or their husband or wife had been killed in a car accident or whatever. And I remember so many reactions. I mean, some people got angry, some people screamed and ran out, some people hit me. It's an emotional uh, thing that many people just can't even fathom, getting that call or hearing that news. So,
Well, and you need to be careful about social media announcements. I have heard families that have conflict because somebody posted on Facebook that mom or dad died. And so you need to clear with at least your siblings, hey, I would like to put the obituary on Facebook. In fact, I wound up with conflict with my in-laws, who died within a week. My mother-in-law used medical aid in dying. Her second husband died naturally on hospice, but I put the obituary in the newspaper and then I shared it on Facebook, and I tagged the husband's daughter and granddaughter. And oh my God, the blowback I got from them for doing that, for tagging them in this Facebook post. And the granddaughter actually got quite nasty. She was like, well, Myra did assisted suicide. And it's like, no, she was 94 years old, 95 years old, and medical aid in dying is legal in New Mexico. And it's like, so yeah, you never know what you're going to set off when you put it on social media.
And I think that putting the obituary is probably one of the most tasteful ways of doing it. You know, something that is alerting them very, very softly. You know, here's the obituary. Certainly, you're sending the message that he's gone, he or she is gone, and then they can read the details. I think that's one of the best ways, rather than, you know, watching. You have to watch your words if you make any other type of announcement. You know, like that. Yeah. So. Oh yeah, you just don't know anymore, right? The world has changed for us baby boomers.
So many ways to communicate.
So Gail, what are the key elements that make for a meaningful and a memorable obituary?
Well, you want to get some colorful details about them, but you do need to also be aware that the more words you put into an obituary in the newspaper, the more it's going to cost. Right. You can do a short notice and send people to a funeral home's website, where then you could expound at length about the colorful characteristics of your loved one. And that really, I love the fact that some obituaries go viral because they were such colorful people, right, and that was captured in their obituary.
Yeah, I had one recently that went viral. I didn't even know the person, but I saved it and printed it off because this woman had written her own obituary before she died. And she was just talking like directly to you, even though you didn't know her. It's like, wow, it was incredible. Gail, what advice do you have for dealing with maybe a situation where it's a sensitive topic or potentially controversial details in an obituary, or strange relationships, you know, or cause of death?
Just leave it out. Less said, the better.
Yes. In fact, it was interesting because I had a sister-in-law who found out that her husband, the man she thought was her husband, had been married to someone else when she thought she was married to him, and she found a lot about that in the obituary. So, no, you can find out some things that you really don't want to know, I think. But
isn't the saying discretion is the better part of valor?
Yeah, especially in this situation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Gail, for participating in this discussion today. What information can you give our viewers about how to get a hold of you and some of your services and the books that you have? I know that they would love to talk to you. Where can they go to do?
Come to my website, agoodgoodbye.com. And if you want to get in touch, email me, Gail, Gail, at agoodgoodbye.com. And
great. Thanks so much, Gail.
Thank you.